Hey everybody, it's Jenny Israel here, and I am doing my first Soul Speak solo. For those of you who don't know, my partner Jennifer Snell, the other Jenny, passed away suddenly on September 11th. And anybody who knew her has been grieving this loss. It does feel like quite a void. And as I have been trying to figure out how to best honor her, the soul speak kept coming up in my head over and over again. And I suddenly, about a week ago, kind of came to a place where I realized that as connected as she and I were, that there would be no reason why I couldn't continue the soul speak in her memory and open my channel for Jennifer to be a part of each and every one of these videos. And because we connected to each other very deeply through the Akashic records, I will continue to do so for you here. Now, of course, the Soul Speak will be a little bit more in my own style, but what I do hope to bring is the deep connection to spirit and insight into the light side. And as Jennifer always said, no matter how deeply we go into the shadow, the light is always winning. And so I thought that it would be most appropriate if I continue to be here to offer whatever wisdom wanted to come through the channel and to help guide those who were still looking for that kind of information. And so here I am. I will continue to call this channel the Soul Speak with the two Jennies because I believe that she is ever present, not just for me, but for anyone's life that she touched while she was here. So I think that it was appropriate that this first video out of the gate, honoring her memory, that I would talk a little bit about where we had been and why there was no Soul Speak over the months where we were experiencing the pandemic and experiencing quarantine in a lot of places in the world. And as Jennifer and I were touching base through those times, neither of us wanted to be on camera. I think that there was part of it wanting to cocoon, wanting to kind of hide away from visibility as we were trying to, gather the bits of our lives that were kind of blowing away like the wind. And as all of us were experiencing these life-altering changes to our world and trying to figure out how we fit in. The identity shift for our globe has been tremendous, and no one was left untouched by the energy of the change that is sweeping across our earth. Jennifer nor I excluded from that. And so we had both agreed that we would take a hiatus from doing Soul Speak, because even when we would gather together, we couldn't figure out what we would even say, how we would show up for you. The veil had changed. It was like our perspective had changed. Our ability to do an energy forecast had changed. It was like suddenly, and I'm sure that for those of you who are intuitive and empathic and, could feel the change coming late last year as we were going into the fall, there felt like there was a tremendous shift that was coming as we were all anticipating 2020 being this groundbreaking year for visibility and clarity and transformation and truth, which it has been, just not necessarily in the way that potentially we imagined it. And what we were noticing as those people who were guiding others through these very difficult times is that what we were able to see for people had changed. It was no longer about necessarily the clairvoyance, the precognizance of what was down the road. It shifted into more of a place of being present right now and only being able to really live in the moment that was happening right now, just from sheer survival because of the incredible shift that was going on outside of our doors. The overwhelm would overtake you the moment that you tried to think ahead. We were also placed into a situation where we couldn't make plans. We couldn't decide, in 2 months from now, we were going to go on vacation, or we were going to visit our family, or we were going to fly here or go there, have events where people would gather. None of that was acceptable anymore. Never in my history, or at least in my time, have we ever been put into a position where we were basically forced to be present. And this is truly, I believe, what happened inside of this massive identity shift that we all started to go through. It was like suddenly we had to spend all of this time with ourselves that we had never had before. And inside of that time, with this crisis going on outside that threatened our very lives, our survival on so many levels, the vibration of death all around us, we started to really think about what our lives looked like, who we were inside of it, what our purpose was. And even those of us who are very heart-centered and purpose-driven, there's still work to be done. We were still looking inward to figure out what part of ourselves still needed to rise, what parts of ourselves still needed to be healed. And, Jennifer and I talked frequently about the polarity of light and dark, and how your range of consciousness can only increase if you go both directions. It's like the lower you go, the higher you pop up. We would talk about that quite frequently in Soul Speak. And so as an earth, as a globe, for the first time, we were all going through the same thing, even if it was happening in waves in different countries at different times. We were all facing the same threat. We were all dealing with the same restrictions, the same unknown. And that in and unto itself created a consciousness shift that was more powerful on the collective than I think that any of us have ever really experienced in this lifetime. It was a war, but just a war against an unseen force. And I think that kind of made it scarier. And the brevity of life became extremely visible. And so we were put in positions at that time to think about the people that we really loved, the people that we wanted to be spending time with, the people we were missing. And how were we spending our time? Where were our priorities? All of these things got reevaluated, and our identity inside of our lives started to shift as people lost their jobs, lost their health, lost family members, lost structures, church, school. I mean, there were so many things that you could assign identity to and go through a structured routine each and every day. You get up, you get on the hamster wheel, you don't ask questions, you just do it. And then suddenly we're put in a situation where we can't do that anymore. So there was a really big shift going on. And I think each of us did have to go into somewhat of a survival mode in order to regroup and figure out what the new organization was going to look like inside of our lives, inside of our families, how we were going to make money, how we were going to socialize, how we were going to fill our bucket. These were all different things than perhaps we'd ever looked at before, because so many of the things that we took for granted were taken away. So when Jennifer and I thought about doing energy forecasts, it became very difficult for us to figure out exactly what we would say when we didn't have any answers, because we were just as deep inside of this shadow shift as everybody else. All these months later, especially now without her here, I think that, I continue to look at my purpose here as a healer, as a teacher, as a student, as someone who holds the torch, someone who holds the light, that there was no better message for me to be able to give to all of you today, holding space for Jen and myself, than to just be where you are. That inside of this Soul Speak, your energy forecast is not necessarily about what's coming. It's just about where you are right now. And the right now has just as many gifts being harvested as we have challenges. It all just depends on how you're choosing to look at what's going on. And I think that we're in a very big battle with the shift, the ascension, if you will. I've had so many people ask me about 5D, this fifth density. What is it? What does it mean? Are we there yet? Is it coming? What does that look like? And none of us really know, other than the fact that we know that the vibrations of it are of unity, of unconditional love, of forgiveness, letting go without attachment. A lot of what we are being forced to do at this time in order to find peace. And as we move more rapidly towards this ascension energy, towards a 5D transition, the more our ego fights to keep us back in the third dimension, where attachment is necessary. We attach to things, we place significance on things as part of our material world. We place attachment on people, we place attachment on things, we place attachment on money, on status, structure, power. All of those things are things that we have created and we've labeled, and we have this organized structure that also creates polarity, which is basically the hermetic, principles of our life, is that where there is light, there is dark. Where there is hard, there is soft. Where there is white, there is black. And we then spend our lives assigning significance to these things and labeling them as such. And in this time, when there is this pull to come together, to move into a unity consciousness, which truly is a 5D vibration and lives here, not just here, we start to feel the connection between the two places, from divine masculine to divine feminine, to north and south, to black and white, to light and shadow, all of these things. And we're seeing it in the macrocosm of our world right now through the political environment, the extreme need to be on one side or the other instead of being able to be in the middle. This is the pull of the ego. This is the ego desperately trying to hang on to all of those things that made our world what it is. It's the structure that we've grown up inside of, the foundation of what we've grown up inside of. It doesn't matter how broken it is. The ego doesn't say, oh, this is horribly wrong. It just says, this is all we know to survive. And so we're desperately going to hang on to it at all costs, instead of moving into this new place that is extremely uncomfortable because it's in the middle. It's in the middle where there is no control through attachment, no control through labeling, no intellectualizing based on the label that's been placed on that thing that then categorizes it and compartmentalizes it for our brain. Now there's these new things that are emerging. There are lines being crossed. There's lots of gray area. And this gray area is truly where we're supposed to go in order to be able to find the balance. So we're releasing these attachments, we're releasing the polarity, and that's really hard because we're beings that are made from contrast. I mean, our very three-dimensional world relies on that contrast for us to be able to experience it through our senses. And so as we move more towards a heart-centered, vibrationally sound 5D that's based on the middle and based on the combination of all of these polarities, where everything comes into balance, our egos don't know what to do with that. And so we fight back. And that's what's happening right now. And so I guess the being where you are right now is understanding this resistance that's rising up inside of you and starting to ask yourself some really important questions about where it's coming from. It's inside of you. Yes, you are triggered by the things that are going on outside of you, but these things are not the cause of your dis-ease, and these things are not the cause of your resistance or your agitation. There's something inside of you that's interacting with the vibrations outside of you that's creating this situation. I think one of the biggest faults that we have is that we've never learned to turn inward and look at what's happening inside of our environment, our bodies, our hearts, our mind. We just instantly assign fault and blame to all of the things that are around us, hence giving our power away and creating these external power structures that are now falling. And everyone is grappling to try to figure out how to handle this, how to handle these power structures that are falling down all around us, not knowing what's coming, not knowing what it's going to look like. This is where our root chakra goes into a full flight or fight, and people act crazy because there is a signal inside of our human body that says, if you threaten my existence, I will die. And that can look like anything. That can apply to any structure that we are used to living inside of each and every day. It doesn't have to just be the basics: food, water, money, shelter, love. Although a lot of those things are being threatened through our current situations and circumstances now. So we are also in a planetary place right now with Mars in retrograde, where emotions are running hot and running high, and energy is running low. And when we don't have a lot of life force to rely on, and our energy is low, and we get tired, any sort of fatigue, mental fatigue, physical fatigue, emotional fatigue, soul fatigue, we don't have the fuel, the willpower to stay objective and stay in control of our emotions. It becomes very difficult. This can make people spontaneous, impulsive, reactive, and not necessarily the best of ways. And so this is why I say, inside of the message for today of being where you are, it's taking a look at what is going on inside of this moment. Asking yourself, why are you having the feelings that you're having? Why is this thing setting you off? Why do you feel unsafe? Why do you feel unsupported in your life? Why do you feel powerless? Why do you feel that you have no power over your own happiness or your own contentment or your own satisfaction? What is it that you're trying to be taught right now? We are in the season of harvest. Everything that's coming into bloom to be harvested now are seeds that you sowed many months ago. Inside the harvest is the end of a cycle, but it's also the bounty. It's the gifts. It's where we celebrate the growth period, this transformational period that is coming to an end, where we reap the benefits and the bounty and the abundance that the earth provides before we go to sleep for the winter time. And so on a spiritual level, you're being asked to look at the same thing. Where are you in this season? What are you harvesting? Are they things that you've taken for granted? Are you sharing your gifts and abundance with others? Are you gathering at the same table? Are you having compassion for another person's truth? We're all coming at this from different directions. Everyone's reality is something they've created based on their belief systems and what is true to them. You threaten someone's beliefs, you threaten someone's truths, and they will respond in a survival way. Understanding that we all have these structures in place because some of it was born into us, others were taught. Some are just have been choices that we've made based on what felt good at the time. And I think that we've reached a place in our timeline now where we're being asked to question everything. to stop assigning power to these places that have had it for too long, taking back our own power inside of our own lives, and then deciding how we're going to wield that power. Are you going to do it in a destructive way, in a manipulative way? Are you going to do it in a way that supports the whole inside of this bridge that we are walking right now into more of a 5D world? Before we can move into a 5D existence, the 3D has to collapse. We are going through repeated collapse of the towers falling. And each of us is experiencing this inside of our own lives because each of us is a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so if you are able to do the work inside of your own life, then that sends ripples out into the collective. I think that, we've all had moments, even those of us who have not chosen fear during these times. We've tried to stay above it. We've tried to stay objective. We've tried to be lights for others. Nevertheless, the collective vibration of fear is part of each of us. And at some point, it does get triggered. And being aware of it is one of the biggest parts of the battle. I've experienced it myself when suddenly I have it rise up inside of me, and this fear and anxiety it's almost uncontainable. Using every single one of my tools to try to figure out how to bring myself back into center. And these are little towers falling, whether they're our own or whether we are observing it as a transmitter for the collective. But each one of us has these vibrations, and we need to be aware of it and how we're reacting or responding to when it gets triggered. So I guess I just wanted to, first of all, touch base with all of you that were tuning in each week. As Jennifer and I were delivering our Soul Speak messages. Let you know that I wanted to continue this platform in her memory, and to hopefully provide messages that will help us along the way. I'm hoping to have some collaboration and have some other people on to support different topics, but that generally the direction of Soul Speak is going to be inside of the present moment. What is happening right now, not what is coming, not what is it going to look like, because honestly, I don't think anybody's really supposed to know. We just are feeling it. Glimpses, we might get glimpses of what's coming, but I don't think that we're really supposed to have clarity around that because of the fact that we are being taught to live in the now. The 5D, there is no linear time. It's like you thinking about being on the other side of the veil. Everything is happening now. There is, on a soul level, there is no male or female. There is no right or wrong. There is no time. Everything is happening now, and it's happening in a state of love. And so as we move rapidly towards this newness, this new feeling, it's like we're all getting these senses of potentially what that looks like, but we have no idea how we're going to get there. And we have no idea what it's going to look like in between. All we know is that we have to be able to hold the balance, that we have to be able to be as conscious as we can as individuals, to be projecting light into unity consciousness instead of continuing the illusion of separateness, that is of the ego, that is of the 3D world. That is just an illusion. And a lot of us are digging deep, not only into our own lives, but into our ancestry, back to the place where the separation from God occurred. And as we are all trying to find our way back there and heal that separation to bring us back into a unity consciousness, we are having to look at the deepest part of our shadows, the deepest part of our limiting beliefs, the deepest part of the limiting truths, understanding where we truly do not feel worthy of being a part of the tapestry of God, having a partnership with God. There is something inside of us that is broken inside of humanity that we are trying to fix as a collective. And, if you think about that, I don't know what it's called. It's like that, the kinetic pendulum, where it's all of the balls hanging together down, and you pick up one ball and you hit it and it makes the other one swing. It's like what one action here creates movement here. And at the beginning, when you let go of that force, the polarity of the swing is extreme. But after a while, that vibration comes and there is a very harmonious and balanced swing between all of the balls. And I think that right now we are in that place where the ball's just been released and it is really on an extreme swing. And so those of us who are holding space in the middle have to be that much more strong and that much more courageous to be able to transmute the fear, the survival mechanism inside of us that sends us into flight or fight, and hold the ground for the unification that we're all holding space for. So, we will talk more about what this potentially looks like as we're going through it, why we're experiencing such shifts and such extremes, the polarity and contrast of our times now, and potentially where we need to be in order to find peace inside of just being where we are. With the Mars retrograde, I would do a little research as far as how that's affecting your sign. It's a very powerful planet, and when it takes a rest, our energy kind of plummets, and so does our ability to control our reactions. And so we're seeing a lot of that right now, and a lot of fatigue, and that's going to take us through the election. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that contributes to the whole, moving into these later fall months of 2020. So I think I'm going to close this down as my first Soul Speak on my own, and keeping this in memory of Jen, and just kind of making a promise to all of you that relied on these videos that I would hold the torch and that I would be here. I don't know how frequently I'll be able to do it, but I certainly will do it as frequently as I can, and as I feel guided, and be able to give you all a place to go if you need it. So in the meantime, as we move towards the full moon this Thursday, what a wonderful time to set our intentions to release those things that are becoming visible to us, that are places where we need to work, triggers that need to be released, healing that needs to happen in order to make space for us to receive the new that will be continuing to build up until the next new moon. So I'm wishing you all lots and lots of love, lots and lots of healing, hoping that you're all well right where you are right now. And if you're not, that's okay too. Just be where you are and allow that to guide you through the lessons that you're in, the gifts that will be revealed. And remember that the only constant we have is change. And so a bad day can just be a bad day, and hanging in until tomorrow, and not giving up. Each and every one of you is just as important as the next. And all of us combining our light is what is going to shift this world. No one person is responsible for being able to do that. It's all of us as a mass that will help bring this world through this incredible situation that we're all in right now. So lots of love from this place of the two Jennies. I will proudly remain the channel for both of us going forward. So wishing you all the best, and until next time.